Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alison Woodall, and I'm a relocation specialist. That means I get to help you with the financial, emotional, and logistical issues that make moving to a new state so stressful. And today I'm talking to Cindy Burkett, who moved her family and an awful lot of animals all the way from California to Wyoming. Cindy, welcome.
Thank you.
So I would love to talk to you about your journey, because there are many people who'll be watching this video who may be nervous about moving their dog or maybe their cat to a new state, yet you moved 2 trailer loads of animals.
Yes, we did.
And crazy logistics as well. So first of all, where did you move from in California and where did you move to?
We were living in Southern California in a town called Redlands, which is near San Bernardino. And we moved to a remote area of Northeast Wyoming outside of Gillette.
Wow. And had you always lived in California, or had you moved from somewhere else before?
No. My husband and I are from the East Coast, and we met in California, and we've moved a few times.
Okay, so this wasn't your first relocation experience. Was this your biggest relocation experience?
This was our biggest. This was the first one with animals.
Wow.
We had relocated once just us, twice with our children, and then this time with the children and the animals.
Okay, well, so everybody always wants to know about weather. So Wyoming, when I think of Wyoming, I think of beautiful summers, but pretty harsh winters. How has winter been so far?
We've been very lucky. We actually moved here in winter. We moved in December. So that was sort of a funny thing. People say you're going to Wyoming in December. We were very lucky. It was not snowing when we got here. Having grown up in the Northeast, both my husband and I, we're used to cold and snowy winters. Here it's different. It's colder, it's drier, and the snow is very different. The snow that we are more accustomed to is more snow, heavier and wetter. Here, the snow tends to be much drier, much lighter, more frequent, but less accumulation. That makes sense?
Yeah, that does. I lived in Canada for about 6 months, and you don't think about snow being different, but it really is. So that's good to know. So if you're moving to Wyoming, the snow is different to the Northeast. So you said you have children. So were your children excited about the move? Did they have a big part to play in your move?
This would not be the first move for them either. My parents moved us when I was 7 years old. And I was very upset about it because I didn't find out about it until it was practically happening. So when we had our kids, they were born in Birmingham, Alabama, and we kind of knew that we weren't going to be there forever. And we made sure that they were aware that a house and a home are 2 different things. The house is the building, the home is your family and what you have, and that can change, very much like we talked about with cars. You know, you have a sports car when you're single, you get a minivan when you have kids, you get an SUV when you're traveling, and houses are the same way. You need a different style house, different type of house, depending upon the ages of your kids and what you're doing and that sort of thing. So I wanted them to understand that this house would not be their home forever, but that we would always be together. And that worked with them. And so when we decided to leave California and move to Wyoming, they were very much involved in the process. And it actually turned out that when we decided to leave California, it was my daughter's idea to come to Wyoming.
I love that. Well, because we're in California right now, and my son will probably be here a couple of years, but my son loves the idea of moving to Colorado next. So we don't mind where we go to. I mean, there's certain states that I don't think I want to live in, but I'm always open to suggestions. So my son, we've told him that when we decide to move, if he wants to move to Colorado, that's where we'll go, if we can try and figure it out. And I think when you give your children as much control as possible, but the ultimate say lies with you, and your spouse, then it does make them feel more in control. So that's great. And you've obviously instilled a spirit of adventure in your children. Does that help too?
Yeah, absolutely. They always tell us the best times that they have is when we're all together on a road trip. Yeah. We took a road trip this past weekend and they were like, it's so fun. We just love being together and just going places and doing things. And we've always done that. We've traveled with our children when they were very small. We would take road trips when they were infants, 1, 2, 3 years old. You just put them in the car and go.
Yeah. because if you're happy and you think it's an adventure, they will too. We took 6 weeks to move from Florida to California, and we told our kids it was the greatest adventure they were going to go on. They got to pick some of the stops that we made, and it was life-changing, and it'll give them that bravery when they're adults to do what we've done, which is pack up and move and go anywhere and not think too much about it.
It's true. And that's what I want them to have. I want them to know that if there's something they want to do, they can do it.
Oh, wonderful. So now let's get to the animals. So tell me, what animals did you move from California to Wyoming?
Well, while we were in California, when we bought our house there, we started collecting animals. We had had chickens before, and we got chickens, and then we got goats, and then we ended up with pigs and cows and horses. So we were expanding a little bit bigger than the acre that we were on. And when we decided to move, we said, okay, we want to bring them with us because we had selected them and we loved our animals. So we took 2 horses, 3 cows, 13 pigs, and a variety of, I think that's everybody that came.
Wow. And how did you transport them? Because you didn't use a moving company.
We did not. I had actually called a livestock hauler and asked them for a quote. And they told me that it would cost me $3,700, which is not outrageous, and you can do it that way. But they did say that we would need to have a loading chute to get the animals into the trailer because they use a semi and it's higher up, and we didn't have that. And the way that our house was situated, there is no way that you would be able to get a truck like that down to where our animals were. So we would have had to have either found an intermediate place where we would have had to brought all the animals and then done that, which would have been an additional expense. So I started looking at alternatives, and in looking on one of the online classifieds, I found a trailer that would house everybody for $5,000. I said, okay, because then we now have it, we can use it. And if we don't need it, we can sell it, right? So we bought the trailer and brought it home, and we had a small 2-horse trailer. So we had actually talked several times about which animals would go which way and which trailer. And we finally decided on the pigs would all go in the small 2-horse trailer, and everyone else would go in the larger trailer. The 2 horses, the 3 cows, and then all of the poultry were in cages that fit into the trailer. So everybody went in the big trailer except the pigs.
Wow. And did you have to take food and water for the animals as well? Or did you just plan on stopping and getting food and water when you got to?
No, we brought the food and the water. Water, well, we didn't bring the water. You bring water bowls, and water you can usually get along the way. But feed, the horses had hay, so we just made sure that they had plenty of hay. And originally the plan was for it to be a 2-day trip. We were going to leave California early in the morning and get to Albuquerque, stay overnight, and then leave Albuquerque early in the morning and get to Wyoming, which is not what happened. But we had hay for the horses and the cows, and they had plenty of that in hay nets. And chickens, ducks, and turkeys are really easy because their feed is. And then the pigs will eat pretty much anything. And the breed of pig that we have are actually pasture pigs, so they'll eat hay as well. So for the trip, that was their primary thing as well.
Okay. And so you said you originally planned just to stay in Albuquerque. If someone's planning, like I say, maybe they can't do it in a couple of days, maybe they're moving all the way across country. How do you decide where to stop and how long you can do in one day?
For us, it was primarily based on the animals. From everything I've seen, animals are pretty resilient and can be pushed a little bit more if need be, but generally speaking, you want to water them every 4 hours, and usually 8 hours of trailering is pretty good. 8, 10 if you want to push it a little bit. And again, circumstances determine it, but we tried to figure on somewhere between 8 and 10 hours where would be a good place to stop.
Okay. And then you said you used horsehotel.com. Is that?
Yep.
And then, so that they have places, that's like Airbnb, but for animals?
Exactly. It is a website where people who have ranches, small farms, whatever, the ability to house animals, they put it up there, and there's all different types. Some of them you just leave the animals there and you need a hotel. Other ones have hookups for RVs. Other ones have accommodations for people as well. And all that's listed out on their website, and you can call and talk to them as to what their options are and whatnot. And you book your horses or cows or whatever there for the night. And that way you can stop, unload them, let them relax overnight, get some food and water, roll, run, whatever they need to do, so that when you get on the road the next day, they've had a break just like you have.
Okay. So you planned this based off Horse Hotel and you did all your logistics. So then you set off, and what happened?
We got 1 hour from the house we were leaving, and one of the trucks was having an issue. Wouldn't pull, wouldn't go up the hill. We pulled over. My husband's like, it's dead. Great. So we called, you have to have some sort of roadside assist, whether it's AAA or whether it's something else. We had roadside through our insurance company. So I called them and I said, hi, we're traveling, we're on the road and we're stuck on the side of the road. What are we doing? She said, oh, we'll call a tow truck for you. And I said, okay, just make sure the tow truck can tow, the big truck and the trailer. She said, is there anything in the trailer? I said, well, yeah, we have cows and goats and ducks and turkeys. And she said, our drivers are not licensed to transport live animals. I'm like, okay. So here we are on the side of the road in Indio, California. And she said, let me make some calls for you. So she made some calls as far as letting me know where there was a place that we could look at repairs, because the particular truck that had the problem had a diesel engine. So we looked for a diesel mechanic. Sorry about that. And they also said that they would see if they could find a tow company that would be able to tow the animals. So they did. And we had to have basically an 18-wheeler tow company come out. And they towed us back to Indio to this diesel mechanic who was amazing. And we spent most of the day there because he went and he got the part and fixed everything. And it turns out we had blown a gasket and he replaced the gasket. And it was very funny because the tow actually cost us more than the repair. Wow. But we hung out there and, we walked down the street, we had something to eat, we kept the kids busy, we played with the dog, and the animals were fine. The animals were in the trailers. We just made sure they had water, checked on them, made sure they were calm. Everybody was fine. And we get back on the road. But by the time we get back on the road, it was now 6 p.m. and we're just leaving. So I started making some phone calls to other places. Now, I happen to know someone in Phoenix, and she's how I found out about the horse hotels, because she is actually one of them, and she's a friend of mine. So I called her and asked if there was anyone there, and she said, no, it was fine, come on over. So we ended up driving 5 hours to Phoenix. Had I not known her, there are horse hotels in that area, and I could easily have called one of those. But we got there around midnight, let everybody out. The horses were in pens, the cows were free grazing, and we got to rest. Wow. Got up the next day, fresh start.
Okay, so what I'm taking from that is, before you set off, make sure that your truck is as repaired as possible and good to go. I'm like a tire crazy person, because we got stranded on the road with a flat tire once, and my husband with his job tows different people's trailers. So I know that you've got to have your spare in good working condition, and also the spares for the trailer. You need to have all the equipment, the jacks and everything to change a tire, and have practice. So if you're stuck at the side of the road, but vehicle and everything, but then something will always go wrong. So obviously what you're saying, you've got to make sure that if you have roadside assistance, if you're hauling animals, have tow companies already identified who could tow your animals. Find out all the horse hotels along the way and make connections with horse people in that horsey community, so that wherever you might break down, whatever emergency might happen, you're prepared. Is that what I'm taking from that?
Absolutely. Now, we just, this past weekend, we had gone somewhere and we used a horse hotel, and we were talking to the woman there, and they're called horse hotels, but they do deal with other animals. She said the most unusual animal that they had stay there overnight was a kangaroo.
That's funny. Okay.
So, some people might be thinking, oh, that's for horses, but it depends on what animals that you have. If you have domestic animals, you can also look at most hotels. There are many of them that are pet friendly. We took our dog with us this weekend, pet friendly hotel. He came in with us.
Yes.
It was fine.
Well, we
You
moved.
just need to look ahead.
We kind of planned our route because we had our border collie sheepdog with us. So we tried to stay in La Quintas wherever possible, because most of them are okay. I mean, they're not luxury, but they don't charge you a pet fee. Motel 6 also doesn't charge you a pet fee, but some Motel 6s are not the nicest places to stay. And particularly, I know if you're towing a trailer full of your stuff, you want to choose the best hotels that you possibly can. But a lot of hotels will let you stay with a dog. They just charge you $40 or $50 for the dog, but La Quintas don't. So, okay, so you got on the road the next day from Phoenix, did you say?
Phoenix. Mm-hmm.
Okay, did
and
you
we headed northeast towards Gallup, New Mexico. And our plan again was to get to Albuquerque and then move on. But when we got to Gallup, it started snowing. It started snowing pretty heavily. I had not pulled a trailer before, so I was in the GMC 1500 pulling the small trailer. My husband was in the Dodge 3500 pulling the big trailer. I was very uncomfortable. So when we got to Gallup and it was snowing, I said, let's pull over, let's grab something to eat, let's make a plan and figure out how we want to handle this. So we did. We pulled off the freeway into a hotel parking lot where there was a restaurant and whatnot. Always look for parking lots that are large if you're towing. You can find nice big spaces, large parking lots. And we went in and we ate, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And we said, we can't drive in this. So we booked the room. And at this time, we didn't have anywhere that we could put the animals. We really didn't. So we asked the hotel if it was okay to leave them there. They said yes. We went out and checked on them a few times, put blankets on, covered the birds. When we brought the birds, we took moving blankets and put them over the crates. So during the day we could open them, and at night we could close them for both warmth and just to make them comfortable. So yeah, we did that. Pigs are great because pig pile, they keep warm. But they had shelter. They had everything they needed. They had food, they had water. It wasn't the most comfortable thing on the planet, but they were safe.
Wow.
And when we got up the next morning, we realized we had definitely made the best decision, because the interstate between Gallup and Albuquerque was jammed. There were big trucks, slide-offs, rollovers, jackknives everywhere. Even in the morning after the snow had cleared, it took us 4 hours to make that 2-hour drive. And I've never seen that many accidents on that small section of road. So I'm really glad that we didn't decide to push it, because we never would have made it.
Wow. And it's very interesting with weather, because when we lived in Florida, I would check the weather radar at least 2 or 3, 4 times a day, particularly when we were living in the RV because of the pop-up storms. And I needed to know if I needed to take the awning down on my RV, because an awning's like a giant sail, and I could just
Exactly
imagine these pop-up storms flipping my RV over. And so I watched the radar all the time, and I would wake up in the morning, see what the weather was like, check it throughout the day. Now living in California, I never check the radar because it's always sunny. The weather it doesn't change. And if it does, you see it coming from so far away, but it's not like that in other states. So you obviously got to experience this, that there's a snowstorm and it just comes on you, and you need to be prepared. So I'm so glad you were safe. So where did you go next?
Well, this time where we get up in the morning in Gallup, by the time we got to Albuquerque, it was just mid-morning, so there was no point in stopping there. And I had been in touch with the contact at the horse hotel, and I had let them know along the way what was going on, and told them that once we determined that we weren't going to be there, we let them know as soon as possible. And then we looked for where we would be stopping. So we looked into Colorado, and we found this wonderful place in Pueblo, Colorado, that had, I don't even know how many horse stalls. There was 100 acres. And they had multiple buildings with a bunkhouse and stalls and everything. And the gentleman there said it was originally built as a practice facility for the U.S. Olympic dressage team. It was beautiful. And we stayed there with all the animals and my kids and us. And it was less than what I normally pay for a hotel. Wow. It was crazy.
That's wonderful.
And it was beautiful. We were in contact with the gentleman there, letting him know sort of where we were on the road, what the road conditions were, when we expected to be there. And most people that are hosting the horse hotels they're super know what's going on, keep them posted, because I don't want to show up really late unexpectedly. I don't want to not show up. So for me, if people are going to be doing this sort of thing, it's really important to me to make sure that they know exactly what I'm doing, where I'm going, et cetera, so that they know when to expect me and they know what we're dealing with.
Wow. And then the next morning, did you finally make it to Wyoming?
The next day, yes, we got up early and we finally made it to Wyoming. By the time we got here, it was late in the afternoon. Of course, it was December, so you're losing light fast. And we're trying to get everyone situated in the dark, which was fun. But that was one of the other important things. The property we chose had corrals and facilities for the animals. And we had pretty much determined where everyone was going, because we knew that when we got here, we either were having very little light or none, and we wanted to know where everyone was going. So we had a plan for that, and it worked well.
You said your husband had gone out before you ever moved the animals and had taken pens and got everything set up for them.
Before we left California, about a month before we left, we were in escrow, both on the house we were selling and the one that we were purchasing. We consolidated the animals, took down a lot of our corrals and extra pens and whatnot. My husband and a friend took 2 trucks and 2 flatbeds with all the corral panels and brought them up so that we could have everything here to set up for the animals as quickly as possible. And they brought those up, and we could not leave them on the property because the previous owners, for whatever their reasons, liability or whatnot, didn't want us leaving anything here. So we contacted our real estate broker and asked what she would suggest if there was a storage place or whatnot. And she had a friend that had 5 acres that said, sure, come up, drop them here, come get them when you're ready. So that's what they did. So we're real lucky on that. Otherwise, we would have put them in, just a regular storage facility for a month. And that way, just after we got here, we got everyone in their places. And the following day, my husband went over, started picking up the panels, and then we started setting up different corrals and arena and a round pen and whatnot so that we could start letting animals out, let them free range, stretch their legs, get accustomed to the area.
Wow. Okay. So lots of proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Oh, wow.
There's some kind of, it's like the 7 Ps of planning or something. So it sounds like you had them all covered. And so tell me a little bit about the neighborhood that you're living in. I remember you told me about an open range state, which I'd never heard of.
Wyoming is an open range state. And that means that animals are allowed to range freely. And if you do not want animals on your property, it is your responsibility to fence them out and not the animal owner's responsibility to fence them in.
Okay.
We are 3 miles up a gravel road off of the state highway. And as you come off the state highway, there are signs, and it says, what does it say? I'm sorry? Livestock at large. Okay. That's what it says, livestock at large. And there are cattle grates along the road that help keep them from getting out onto the freeway and stuff, but they wander. You always have to watch out for deer and antelope and cattle everywhere.
Wow, which sounds wonderful unless you're trying to grow a little garden and then those deer get in and eat all your plants.
It is your responsibility to fence your garden. It was actually, we were watching something the other day about somebody put up some fencing, and we have hay for our horses and cows, and we come out almost every morning and find the deer in eating the hay. So just through trial and error, we put up some snow fencing, we put up some other fencing, and we finally did it where we fence away from the hay and then put stuff there because they're great jumpers. Mm-hmm. But what you want to do is make the fence high enough and far enough away that they have to jump not only up but over to make it as challenging as possible for them to get into it, because it's our responsibility to keep them out.
Right. Yeah.
And I know some people use a hot wire around the top to help.
Yeah.
Just makes sense.
we've not seen any deer in California, but there's tiny deer in Florida. Living in Georgia, I mean, even in neighborhoods, there's just deer everywhere. And so people, if you're moving to the south, there's deer everywhere. If you're moving to Wyoming, there's deer. I love the idea of an antelope. I'd like to wake up with an antelope in my yard.
Pronghorn antelope are everywhere up here, absolutely everywhere.
Wow.
And we have a herd of mule deer that are literally on our property. We see them pretty much daily. They'll be right out in my front lawn. They'll be all over the property. They're down eating the hay right outside the horse pens. They're always here.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, my goodness, you've told us so much. And, although it sounds like everything went wrong, I think the fact that you had a plan. When you have a plan, even if something goes wrong, it goes less wrong than if you have no plan. But it sounds like you're very flexible and you just have a great attitude. And I think whenever you're relocating, if you can just figure out how to stay calm and overcome every problem, that's what gets you through.
There's basically two choices. Either you are a resourceful person and you can solve issues on the fly. And if that's not your strong point, then you need to research your resources ahead of time and be sure that you have places to call if things happen. And you may not need any of that, but if something happens, it's nice to know that I know a towing service I can call, a hotel chain I can call. I know where I can put my animals. If you have that list of phone numbers and resources, it makes it a little bit less stressful when something happens as to how to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's I am that person. I plan ahead. I have maximum insurance. I think of worst case scenario, plan for it, and then pray that it never happens. And my husband is the resourceful one who just figures it out. Whatever happens, he'll come up with a plan. So the two of us together, it works out. But that's the goal, is through interviews like this with you, people like you, we try and cover everything that people in these Facebook groups could encounter when they're traveling. So I really appreciate you talking with me today, and thank you. I hope you've inspired lots of people to be brave and make that relocation journey with their animals.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
It's been great for us.
Thank you.